It could take you several days to get all the information to make sure that you got the right list. Are they using multiple pharmacies? I've had people on multiple doses of the same blood pressure medicine that they're getting filled at 2 different pharmacies. And then you want to know why they keep showing up in the ER.
So Don, patient comes back from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor's ordered new medication, new med list on the 1823. Okay, the new 1823.
Oh yeah, the new
So-
one. That's not correct, by the way.
So what's that?
They're never correct.
Well, let's say you got the med list. Staff's going to call you up and say, "All right, boss, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue with the med list we have on the system, or do we implement this new order that we have from the hospital with the new med list?" And of course, you tell them to call the attending. Attending doesn't call back, and you tell
Yeah,
them.
that is such a challenge because your valid orders are what came from the hospital, right? You know your resident, right? So my suggestion would be to communicate with the pharmacy that you use, ask to speak to a pharmacist, and there's always one on call. Now give them 30 seconds to wake up, if it's late. But I would ask them to help me with the list, particularly for my unlicensed staff, because I think that's putting a lot of responsibility on them. You have to go with the list that you have, because that's the most current orders, meaning everything else has been discontinued. And they will come back on insulin when they went to the hospital on orals.
That's right.
In an acute situation, they might have needed the injectable. So our goal, if we can, if their body will let us, is to get them back on the orals, right? Absolutely. And our goal is to not have to stick that finger 4 times a day if we don't have to. Absolutely. Is it going to happen right away? No. I'm sorry. I wish it would, but it doesn't. At some point, I think we'll get to a point where it's 24/7, somebody's available.
So the staff will oftentimes say, "Well, hold on, boss. I don't have a DC order for all these other medications that are on my MOR. How can I DC these orders when I don't have a DC order? And now I've got these new orders from the hospital physician, and the attending physician has yet to call me back. It's now going on 2 hours." So can the facility say, "Well, hold on, here's the standard of care protocol is we will DC the meds of the meds on the MOR, pending the physician telling us otherwise, we will DC those meds upon receipt of the medication orders from the hospital." Is that compliant practice under the ACA rules?
And that's pretty much what you see, is the facility will take the new 1823 and so will the pharmacy. Now, your pharmacy will usually call you up and say, "Excuse me, they didn't put them back on their seizure medicine." So sometimes there's kind of a gray area, and I wish all this was black and white, but it's not, guys. And so what we have to do in our minds and hearts, and with the knowledge that we can acquire, is the best that we can for these residents. So the goal, in my mind, is to get the resources. If it's multiple pharmacies, let's call those pharmacies. If it's multiple physicians, let's explain to them that we have received this resident, we have a primary care, we have a cardiologist, we've got an endocrinologist. Usually the podiatrist just cuts the toe. That's right. So they don't usually do a lot of drugging. So God bless them. So here's the challenge in most buildings. There's an important job to be done. Everybody's sure somebody could do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. But that's out there on Google. You can pull it. Your staff will enjoy it. Because how many of you have heard, "It's not my job"? Everything is your job, just like everything is my job. Now, do I want to have to plunge the toilet? No, but have I plunged the toilet? Yes. Okay, so how do we improve it? So in each building, you're going to have a slightly different process. So who is your first point of contact? Is that your marketing person? Can you ask the marketing person to ask the family or what the discharge planner, can we get a list to start with? Okay? Maybe what they were on when they came in is probably not going to be what they're on when they leave. But there's a lot of information that you can gather along the way, unless it's one of those emergency admissions. I hate emergency admissions. I've taken a few of those during hurricanes and other things when we found people at home that didn't have anybody to take care of them. And so then not only do you not know their diagnosis and their allergies, you probably don't have a med list, you just have a gym bag full of pills. The goal is to have consistent medication reconciliation. So you can make this as labor intense as you like. My thought is to look at what I've got now and to go back through a little bit of history with their primary care, their secondary physicians, and see if I can get a list. Because a lot of times you will find your residents on duplicate therapy. Sometimes I've taken care of residents who were on a stool softener every shift and they wanted to know why they weren't gaining weight. Hello. And we're not required to have consultant pharmacists in assisted living. In a skilled nursing, that probably would have been caught, okay? Because consultants review the charts. So, but I utilize the pharmacists. I'm not a pharmacist, they're little chemical engineers, and I call them up and tell them when I need help. I mean, I think this is duplicate therapy. Is it really duplicate therapy, or is it a different class of the drug? You know, I'm gonna try to look it up myself, but I'm gonna look. There are all kinds of reconciliation forms where you can write down all the drugs here, and you can write down all the drugs there. I'm not gonna handwrite all that stuff. If it comes out of my computer system, I'm gonna print this, and then I'm gonna see what they sent me, and I'm gonna print what you were on before you left if you're coming back. If you're brand new, I wanna see what did they bring with you. Because, you know, in ALFs, they usually send the drugs with the resident. In skilled nursing, they don't, because if they're on their Medicare days, the skilled nursing facility can send those drugs back to their pharmacy and get credit, except for things like eye drops, okay? Creams and ointments. Years ago, the skilled facilities used to send us like a little 3-day supply. That was before the nurses got in trouble for sending drugs out that they didn't have to pay for. So once the nurses got in trouble, they stopped. Yeah, we always thought we were supposed to send drugs. Poor communication, and this happens across every transition that these residents make. The older they get and the less cognitive ability that they have, the more likely they are to be misdosed, okay? When they go into the hospital, a lot of times when they go into the hospital, before they come to assisted living the first time, it's because they've taken too many pain pills and not anything of anything else, or they've taken too much blood thinner and fallen down and now they've got a bleed in their head. Timing of last dose. Do you love it when somebody sends you a resident and you know that they need their anticoagulant, you don't know if the hospital gave it. You know they need their pain medicine, you don't know if the sending facility gave it. It's very important when we're accepting our residents back. I ask those questions only because I've learned the hard way that I won't know whether to give it or not. And then the nurse or the unlicensed person who sent the patient, the resident back, will not be there anymore. They left for the day. Oh, that chart's already gone down to med records. The timing of the last dose, if we don't get that information, that can lead to duplicate dosing or omitted doses. One of the common things that I see we're having challenges with is when they go to the hospital, our residents cannot get up and walk around because there's really nowhere safe for them to do that. So they wind up staying in the bed, okay? They stay in the bed and we put them on Lovenox. It's an injectable, keeps you from getting blood clots. So when they come home, we discontinue Lovenox in acute care, but then we restart their Praxta or Eliquis or whatever it happened to be, okay? Coumadin, warfarin. I love that drug. I know it's an old drug and requires you to have blood testing, but it can be reversed if you're in a traumatic accident. A lot of our population can take all of those drugs, but if you're young and very active, like race car drivers and things, you need to take stuff that can be reversed. So the process can be as simple as 3 steps. So we're gonna clarify what we think they're supposed to be taking. And again, this might not happen right away on admission. So I always tell the family, whatever you can help me do to find out from all the physicians and all the pharmacies, and even if they have to bring me the gym bag. I hate that, but sometimes you have to look at the gym bag. Once we get a verification of what the resident's taken, then we can reconcile any discrepancies. Because if they're on 2 blood thinners, should they be? Some patients are. Sometimes you'll think somebody's on 10 milligrams of Coumadin and they should have been on 1. So there's a lot of very simple things that we can do. You don't have to make this hard. So in a perfect world, you get all this done before they arrived on your doorstep. I know I did not take that pill today, okay? Open-ended questions, because a lot of times they won't tell you what all they take. Because now, like a lot of people, seniors and other people, are taking the CBD oil, okay? They're taking supplements like Juice Plus, Nani Juice is still out there. A lot of those things can interact. I've seen the Nani Juice cause a very healthy person's heart rate go to over 200 and nearly require cardioversion. It's just what they take mixes. Who's in charge of their medicines currently? Who's been doing that for them? If you're receiving the resident from another facility, can we verify the information? Sometimes you get an electronic printout. Sometimes you get a piece of paper that somebody's handwritten. Who double checks that with the actual orders? So is that the admission person? Is that the nurse? In some buildings, it's the executive director, because they don't have nurses in all buildings. I've seen the ED be the nurse and the HR and other stuff.
So Donna, when you are loading the orders into the MOR, typically, a lot of doctors call the orders into the pharmacy. Mm-hmm. So the medication shows up at the building. And typically your resident care coordinators, gain receipt of the medications, and then they start loading into, let's say you're using point-click care or some sort of electronic medical record system, they start loading the medications into the system, or they've loaded them into the system at the pharmacy, whichever is working. But is the order that is on the label, and because typically the ALF is going to follow the order that's on the label, not looking for the written order, not looking, because the surveyors prior to were looking for saying, look, follow the order on the label, but if you have an order that's different on the health assessment, and there's a discrepancy between what the health assessment's telling you and what the doctors called in on, because doctors are calling pharmacies all the time, making all kinds of changes.
Okay, so here's the question. Your prescription label says one thing, the current order is something else. Okay, so what do we do in that case? Well, first of all, in an electronic system, in point-click care, is facility-centric, meaning your staff, nurses, unlicensed staff, whoever you delegate is entering the order. And I can show you some of those entertaining errors in a 10-minute period of just what I saw. Some places with point-click care don't think they should send the order to the pharmacy. Like, you need a double-check system, guys. If you're entering the order, then the pharmacy needs to check it and make sure you didn't mess up. If we're entering the order at the pharmacy, you need to check and make sure we didn't mess up, because everybody here is human. We're all going to mess up. So if I have gotten something that shows up on my electronic system that doesn't match my label, I'm calling and asking for a copy. Because what's on the MOR, electronic or paper, should be followed, right? What's on the prescription label should be followed. If those two don't agree, I need some documentation to tell me why. Then, if it's a prescription label that needs to be altered, you can put one of those directions change stickers on there that says, see the MOR, that's the most current information. For example, if it was 1 tablet a day and now you're gonna take 2, okay. If it's something where we gotta cut the pill into 8 pieces, we need to get a new pill, all right?
So in terms of the audit practice should follow, check those labels
Mhm.
against whatever you've loaded,
Right,
and if loaded is wrong, incorrect,
yeah.
flag it, call physician or call pharmacy. What would you do?
If the pharmacy entered it and it was incorrect, I'm calling the pharmacy. They're human, they made a mistake.
And if the facility loaded it?
If the facility loaded it, the pharmacy generally would call them and tell them that and I'll give you an example. So somebody entered bupropion, it's an antidepressant, for buspirone. So when we called, they said, oh, I'll fix it later. Okay. And this particular facility didn't want to send us, they think they should shred the orders after they've entered. That's a risk management nightmare. Eliquis, the 2.5 dosing, is usually given twice a day. So they ordered it once a day, so you've got a non-therapeutic anticoagulant, so we can have some blood clots and go back to the ER. Carbidopa, levodopa on the wrong person. I've had nurses with this one particular operating system that's facility-centric enter all the wrong readmission orders on the wrong patient. And when we called, she said, well, I'll fix it. That's the general response that we get, which is, and you know, it's scary. It's very scary. Because what if a different person, like the data entry person who caught that, was the only person at the front at that point in time? Had somebody else got those orders, they might not have caught it because she had already been working on those, right? So there's lots of ways we can mess up. So if you guys are entering the orders, please send the orders to the pharmacy. And if the pharmacies enter them, please ask the pharmacy to send them to you. This is very common. This is one of the most common med errors we see entered. Metoprolol for Toprol. They're used, it's a different salt. They're used for different things. And the reason I bring up those few is because that's the ones that I have been seeing a lot of. I do card audits, I do QA for facilities. I just recently did some audits in a building out of 50-some residents. 22 people potentially were getting up to 6,000 milligrams of Tylenol a day. Dr. Orvik. Okay, so review the list. That's what we have. Not everybody. Some of you have been going over and above. But usually we get what we start with, and that's what we start from. But with a little bit of effort and asking some questions, we might can get better data, which can keep our residents from going to the ER, which we want to decrease ER visits. We want to decrease readmissions. Most of us don't get punished for that, but our home health care providers do, our skilled nursing facilities do, and for those facilities who do take Medicaid funding and mental health clients and that type of client, there's a real chance that your facility could lose bed money based on readmissions. It doesn't happen yet, but usually stuff rolls downhill, right? Health professionals should focus particularly on those patients who are at higher risk of death or serious illness because of medication-related harm. For most of us, that's everybody we take care of. So there's information out there, the World Health Organization, the National Institute of Health. If you want a form, need a form, want to have your staff use a form, there are forms out there. My philosophy is get it where I can read it and then compare it to whatever else I can get. And I have hit my time limit.
say something?